one size doesn't fit all. But I would submit that we've, over the last 15 years, maybe 20 years, moved into a direction that is somewhat biased to government specified. I think what we need to do is get back to the future. What do I mean by that? If you really look at the evolution of this industry as an industrial base, we started out in the 40s and 50s as essentially highly classified missile defense, ballistic missile capability. And in the early 60s, we figured out that was not sustainable. It wouldn't sustain itself as an overall industrial base. So what did we do? We privatized commercial communication satellites. We privatized, during the course of late 60s and the early 70s, launch services and what have you. And if you look at what that produced by the 1980s, we had little companies like RCA and Hughes Aircraft Company and Morale, which was then Ford Aerospace, incredibly robust, successful, profitable undertakings that really, in the combination of serving the defense customer, they were able to draw on all of the profitability and expansion of their skill sets into bringing about commercial communication satellite systems. Later on in the 80s and early 90s, commercial remote sensing. During the 90s, we started to figure out how to have geolocation businesses commercially using GPS. That produced a much larger economic base over which to spread our development costs. It produced a much greater opportunity to draw from diversified skill sets in the industrial workforce. Just an incredibly successful undertaking, which was led by this country. So what happened? In the 90s, business school thought process du jour, let's go to core competency, which most of the aerospace defense community interpreted as let's reorganize to focus on government business. And you found many of the major aerospace companies in those days, frankly, divested themselves of their commercial practices. It's little known, Rockwell Collins used to be the largest manufacturer, OEM manufacturer of fax modems for personal computers. It's incredibly successful. Diversified, divested. We all know what happened to Hughes. We all know what happened to a lot of the capabilities of our commercial communication satellite manufacturers. ITAR didn't help, quite frankly. But the bottom line is by the middle of this decade, we had lost that lean and mean edge in our cultures, in our undertakings, to really integrate commercial practices, very sophisticated economic understanding of how to develop and produce and supply things. We lost the understanding of what commercial pricing was. And I would submit that that is one of the factors that has led to, shall we say, less than stellar performance in our major development undertakings across the space enterprise. One of the attractions for coming to Integral, quite frankly, I perceive it as one of the few companies remaining that had 27 years of history of doing what is essentially COTS Plus. It's taking commercial products and services, enhancing it with exceptional system engineering to tailor those capabilities for applications to particular customers. That allows us to blend the attributes of these two models, and to do so in a way that frankly gives us competitive margins vis-a-vis our competitors. That allows us to invest more in IR&D. That allows us to invest more in developing our personnel and workforce. That allows us to explore other types of productization and service models. And I would submit that it is a model that we as an industry need to reflect very carefully on going forward in order to re-engage that commercial enterprise gene in the way we undertake things. We've tended to take an attitude, let's develop everything by nothing. And I would submit that there's some blend of this that we need to get into. I kind of take the position, develop only that which you cannot buy. If we can engage in more commercial practices, both firm fixed price purchases as well as services models, in my judgment, it will open up a whole new economic model that we kind of divorced ourselves from the way the industry has evolved over the last 15 years.